Apparently my parents taught my older sister to say enchanté when she met people, which is kind of bizarre and hilarious. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today I'm showing you a recipe from Dessert Person, and this is a recipe that is great for the dead of winter. It is a bright, happy, citrusy recipe, my Meyer lemon tart. It's sour but sweet, and you have a layer of jam. It's so pretty to look at, so I love eating it. I love making it. I'm excited to show you. I love lemon desserts. Love, love, love. I think lemons are like a miracle of nature, and I use them constantly. Like I always, always, always have lemons in my kitchen. They add the most sort of piercing brightness to anything. And so this is something I've been making for like decades, and I love it. And Meyer lemons are a breed of lemon. They're very popular. They're very common in California. In fact, my cousin sent me lemons from his tree. He lives in Long Beach, California. Thank you, Jordan. And they're a little milder than your standard conventional lemon, but they have this incredible floral, like almost spicy flavor. And to me, when I see Meyer lemons in the store, it means that like it's the start of winter, but they make me a little less sad about winter because they are such a special ingredient and I love them. I mean, this recipe is a great one to demo because yes, we're gonna assemble the tart, but I'm gonna go through the process of making curd, which is itself a very, very versatile pastry component, and you can like spread it on scones or toast. You can put it in a lemon tart. You can like eat it with ice cream. There's just so much you can do with it. So it's a great, great pastry component to familiarize yourself with. So for the tart itself, you need a 9-inch removable bottom tart pan, then a saucepan and a whisk. And then for the crust, I'll show you how to make that sweet tart dough, you need a food processor. Then I have 4 large egg yolks plus a whole egg, 6 tablespoons unsalted butter, 2/3 of a cup sugar, 1/2 a cup yogurt, 1/3 of a cup jam. I'm using raspberry. You can use any flavor, kosher salt, and then Meyer lemons. And we're gonna use the juice and the zest. Before we assemble the tart, we have to make the sweet tart dough. And this is an all-purpose tart dough that you could use as the base for like any tart really. And it's a cousin of pie dough, but it has a much finer texture. It's not flaky, and it comes together very quickly, very simple ingredients. 1 yolk, powdered sugar, a little almond flour, butter cut into 1/2-inch pieces, cup all-purpose flour, 1/2 a teaspoon kosher salt, and 1/2 a teaspoon vanilla extract. I add almond flour, which I toast because I want to give a little extra flavor and texture to the dough. I don't want it to just be like the vehicle for the tart filling. I want it to taste good on its own. So the first step that I'm going to do is toast the almond flour. If you have a nut allergy or you want to keep this nut free for any reason, you could substitute all-purpose flour for the almond flour. So just increase the all-purpose flour by 1/3 of a cup and omit the almond flour entirely. This is going to go in a 350 oven. You could put this in like a toaster oven, but do keep a careful eye on it because something this fine will burn easily. So I'm gonna add all my other ingredients except for the egg and vanilla and butter, which really just means I'm putting the powdered sugar, flour, and kosher salt in the food processor. I'm using 1 yolk as sort of like a binding agent for the dough, and that helps to keep it together, keep it from kind of crumbling, and it just makes a firmer set when you bake it. So I like having a little yolk in there. And to this I'm going to add my vanilla extract, 1/2 teaspoon, and then 2 teaspoons water. I initially made this recipe without any water, and the dough was so tender because the flour in it, like you only produce gluten in the presence of water, and without any water, you don't get any gluten, and the dough was so tender it wouldn't even support a filling. Not a lot. Okay, set that aside. Oh my God, 4 teaspoons cold water. Who knew it was 4 teaspoons? This has been happening a lot, but actually, I looked at the recipe and it's 4 teaspoons. I'm adding 2 more. That seems like a lot, but I made this a million times by the book, so I'm gonna trust myself. It smells like toasted almonds, so I know almond flour is done. Pull that out. Usually like the top layer gets toasted in the oven, so I spread it out pretty thin. You don't want to let it get very dark, otherwise it starts to taste a tiny bit bitter. But this just needs to cool for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna throw it in the food processor with the other dry ingredients. So this is a stick of butter that I cut into 1/2-inch cubes. Make sure it's cold. And unlike pie dough, we don't want big discrete pieces of butter to be left in the dough. We want to sort of fully work it into the flour mixture. But if you wanted to do it by hand, go ahead and have all the ingredients in a bowl, add the butter, and just work it in with your fingertips. But in the food processor, just give it a few pulses. So I don't want to make a dough yet. I haven't added the egg and the other liquids, but I want to create something that almost looks like a coarse cornmeal. So it's not fully broken down. Go ahead and pour in your liquid. And now all I want to do is pulse this until I have a dough that comes together around the blade. Oops, wrong way. And this is my sweet tart dough. I recommend chilling this for at least an hour. Let the butter fully harden again, and then you're good to go. Did I talk about how I love and hate my food processor? I have a love-hate relationship with my food processor. I get my food processor out for very few things, and I have made this tart dough by hand just because I didn't even want to get it out. But I have to say, once it's out, it really is so convenient. I just hate cleaning it. Hi, Maya. Okay. Once you have everything on the plastic, I use the edges of the plastic to press it down. And you can press this into any shape you want. I thin it out because then it chills down faster. And I like to form it into a square. So then I tried to press out any big air pockets. Now, if you look at the texture of this dough, you can see it's very, very uniform. I don't see any bits of butter. What this ends up being a texture that rather than flaky, you get something that's a little bit more like shortbready and cookie-like, but that makes a sturdy base for a tart filling. So this goes into the fridge, and I'm gonna grab one that I made yesterday. This is what it looks like when it's had a chance to chill. So it's gone totally solid, that butter has hardened again, and it's had a nice long rest. So unwrap your dough. I'm having a hard time with this plastic. Now, a general principle that I go by is that like about half the dough goes around the sides and about half goes into the bottom. It's you need slightly more for the bottom of the pan. So this piece is for the sides, this piece is for the bottom. And basically I cut this smaller half of the dough into like 6 pieces. And this part does not have to be exact. And this part's simple. You just press it all the way around the inner perimeter of the pan and into the sides. And this to me is the quickest, easiest way of getting a ring of dough perfectly even around the sides. Now I have a little bit left over. If there's any little areas where like the 2 pieces meet, I can press a little more dough into those areas. And you can see it's not coming all the way up the sides, don't worry, it will. Okay, so now I'm going to take the other slightly larger half of the dough and do the same thing, but this time press those strips into the bottom of the pan. So this is what we have. Now I can actually start to press it into the pan with my fingers. Another very useful tool that I recommend is a straight-sided glass or measuring cup. So I have a measuring cup here. So this is another good tool for pressing and thinning out the dough. It's not gonna warm the dough like your hands do. But for now, I'm gonna start with just my fingertips. And I'm thinning it out, making sure that all the pieces are fusing together, and then pushing it into any areas that are bare. And then when I get to the edge where the sides start, I'm being really careful to make sure I'm pressing the dough firmly into that piece of dough along the side so that it fuses. Now that I have an even layer of dough across the bottom, I'm gonna go in with the sides of my measuring cup and press the dough into the fluted edge. And I wanna press it so that the dough rises to just above the top of the pan. Okay, so that looks good. And before we bake this, just to prevent any further shrinking in the oven and to make sure the dough really holds its shape, I pop it in the freezer for like 5 minutes. If I can find a space for it. God. Oh. Hold on. Okay. Whew. All right. 5 minutes, that's all I need. In the meantime, so I guess I should say, we're gonna par-bake this crust, meaning the crust gets baked without any filling in it, and then we pour the filling in and bake it again. So to do that, I wanna bake it on a baking sheet, which is easy for removal in and out of the oven, and my oven's on 350. What do we say? It's been 5 to 10, and because the dough is in a metal pan and it's in a very thin layer, it doesn't take very long for it to become totally solid. So now I have a little paring knife here, and I want to shave off any excess tart dough.
Do you deep fry those shavings?
No, I'm actually going to hold on to the shavings. Don't throw them out, because it's very useful to have a bit of extra dough, which I can use to patch the tart crust if any cracks appear during baking. So now we have our tart shell, which looks really, really beautiful. It's filling the tart pan, and the layer of dough across the bottom is nice and even. I'm gonna press a piece of foil into the surface of the crust and up the sides, but I'm not gonna weight it. So this is a trick that I picked up from the Chez Panisse Desserts cookbook by Lindsay Shears, pastry chef, a famous pastry chef. And in her tart dough recipe, she uses this technique, which is basically to prevent the sides from slumping. This step helps to keep that definition, but I don't even have to weight it down. Just the action of having the foil pressed into the dough will keep the sides supported. So you can see I've left the foil sticking up, and it didn't wrap it up over and around this exposed edge of the crust. And that's because I want to be able to see how well it's browning. I'm gonna par bake this, so after about 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to take the foil off and then bake it a little bit longer, just so the bottom has a chance to set. So again, 350 center rack of the oven. 15 to 20 minutes is enough time to put together the curd, so I'm gonna show you how to make that. Lemon curd is like one of my all-time favorite things to make. Lemon curd is a very simple preparation. It is a sweetened fruit juice that is set with eggs, and butter is stirred in until it's thick and creamy and delicious. I'm building everything in the saucepan off the heat, putting my sugar in there, and then I'm gonna take the zest from 2 Meyer lemons and finely grate it into the sugar. You could make this with regular lemons. Just follow the instructions in the book for making standard lemon curd, which is the base recipe, and then just use that in the instructions. It will turn out great. I have all the zest in here with the sugar, and I'm also gonna add the salt, a ½ teaspoon. So this is a step I often do when I'm baking with lemons. I am massaging the zest with my fingertips into the sugar, and sugar crystals have sharp edges, and those crystals scrape into the zest and release all of these fragrant oils that are in the zest. And like I can smell it already. It's very, very intense. So you want to keep doing this until the mixture is kind of orange and the zest is distributed. And because of the moisture, it'll kind of look like wet sand. And I want 3/4 cup of fresh juice. I have a teeny tiny cut on my left pointer finger. This part's brutal.
What's the story with the cut?
I don't know. You ever like find cuts on yourself when you like wash your hands and realize like I don't even know when that happened? I'm gonna check on the crust. Maya, you are gonna have to move. That is not a good place for you. I gotta open the oven. Come on, come on. No, no, there you go, there you go. All right, this looks good. I think I'm ready to take the foil off. Remove it slowly so that you don't disturb the surface of the crust underneath. This looks beautiful. I'm gonna bake it a few minutes longer so that I get a little bit of browning on the bottom. Set my timer for, I don't even remember what it says. I'll know when it's done. Let's get back to this. Okay. Always save everything, but I usually like hold on to partially squeezed out lemon so I can add it. Make spa water.
Spa water?
Spa water. You know, like you add some mint, you add some lemons, you make spa water.
Spa water.
The few times I've been to a spa, I'm that person eating all the fruit out of the fruit basket and drinking all the spa water because I'm trying to get my money's worth. Let's make some lemon curd. to my mixture of lemon zest and sugar and salt. I'm adding all my eggs. And I am going to vigorously whisk this. Make sure that you're getting the whisk into those edges and that there's no unincorporated sugar stuck in there. I'm gonna add the juice, whisk that in really well, and now we're gonna cook this. So I'm doing over medium to bring the temperature up a little bit. And the most important thing with lemon curd is do not stop whisking. You are gonna be sitting here next to the stove, just doing this the whole time. Oh God, okay.
Keep whisking.
I can see that this is getting close because I have a thick mixture that is holding, the whisk leaves a slight trail. 170, okay. There's something called nappe, or like nappage in French, which means like coating. It also means like glaze, but basically it will cling to the back of a spoon. And there's no running or anything like that. That is perfect doneness for curd. So now that we have this beautiful cooked lemon curd, I am gonna whisk in my butter. I'm adding it one piece at a time, and then once you see the piece disappear, you can add the next, and whisk constantly. The last thing is to add a little bit of vanilla. I'm adding this at the end because I don't want to cook the vanilla flavor. I want it to be really fresh. So I'm putting this into a quart container. Grab a little piece of plastic wrap, and now I want to press this plastic directly onto the surface of the curd. And that's because custards like this have a tendency to form a skin or like a dried out little layer on top, and this prevents that from happening. So go ahead and press that directly on the surface, then cover it and chill it. This will take several hours to get cold. So in the case of the tart, you can make this well ahead of time. You can make it 3-4 days ahead and just leave it in your fridge, which is what I've done. Ooh. For people that aren't expecting something sour, like, you might wince a little bit.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. This is my 5th tasting, 15th tasting, a quinceañera, if you will.
Oh, jeez.
Meyer lemon tart. Woo! Woo!
How do you like the flavor?
I don't know, it gets me wooing.
I think it's fantastic.
Yeah? All right, well, you be the judge. All right, I guess I'll eat it.
But I still think it's well balanced, and also it's the kind of thing where if you wanted to put a little whipped cream on top, that would be the perfect thing to balance it out. Ooh, this is the point at which you would probably want to patch the crust if you see visible cracks. And like I'm smearing it into so it blends into the crust. There's a little tiny crack right here. Again, if you didn't reserve any dough because you forgot, which happens to me sometimes, make a soft dough out of just flour and water. You're not like gonna taste it. This is just purely structural. So this is 1/3 cup of jam, and this is enough to create a thin layer across the bottom of the 9-inch tart. So scrape that in. All right, this has to go into the oven. So I bake just the jam inside the tart shell, and it basically like sets the jam. It removes some of the water and creates this impermeable layer so that the liquid, the moisture in the curd doesn't soften and sog out the bottom crust. It only takes like 5 to 7 minutes. This is a curd I made several days ago. Lemon curd lasts an extremely long time, like weeks in your fridge. Because it's so acidic, it doesn't really spoil. And basically what happens is we bake this again and cook the eggs even more, and we get something that sets so much that it's sliceable and really holds its shape. Then a 1/2 cup of yogurt. So here is, you can see that it liquefied a bit as I stirred and also incorporated the yogurt. And now this is ready to go and be poured into my tart shell as soon as the jam is set, which should be any minute now. I can see that this is kind of subtle, but it's a little bit more matte. than when it went in. So that's what I'm looking for. That's how I know it's set. And I might not need all the curd. There could be a little tiny bit left over, in which case I don't think anyone's gonna mind having a little bit of lemon curd to snack on. You do wanna try to fill it all the way to the top if you can, which is another reason why it's nice to have a very even crust all the way around. I'm smoothing with Count spatula to make a nice surface, and I'm also mixing in those little clumps of yogurt. Ooh, that's good. You can, anytime you're filling a tart or a pie with like a liquid custard filling, you can give it a couple of taps on the counter, pop any air bubbles. Now I licked this and I have to get rid of it. But I think I actually have. Ooh, pop. Pop. Oh, I think that's a piece of zest. All right, but I'm not gonna drive myself crazy. All right, now back into the oven for 20 to 33 minutes, which is kind of random, but basically I'm looking at right around a half an hour in the oven. But you wanna be careful about not overcooking it. So we'll talk about how do you know it's done. I'm looking for a wobble, but not a ripple. Okay. This is a new zone in my kitchen, which is sitting on my trash can. It's really kind of nice. I should say that there's no color on the surface of the curd. I'm not browning it. I just want it to be set. This looks so beautiful. You can see there's like a little bit of rise around the very edge of the curd, so that egg has souffled. And when I do this, see how the whole thing wobbles, but I'm not getting like little liquidy ripples. So this needs to cool, and then I'm gonna chill it because we wanna cut this cold. I want the butter in the curd to set, and we'll get a really clean, perfect point slice. Okay, I think it's been like an hour and a half to 2 hours since I put the tart in the fridge. It could really go longer, but we have other things to do today, so I'm gonna cut it. So, now before I serve it, in order to cut it, I need to take off the outer ring. So I need to unmold it. And here is a little trick for unmolding something with a removable bottom. So I just rest the tart in the bowl and let the ring fall away. Easy. Stick it back on here. Oh, see how it's quivering? It's not quite set yet, but it looks beautiful. I just love this stripe of jam at the bottom. It's so pretty. I just think that this is such a perfect dessert. It's tart and a little bit bracing, but it's so well balanced by all the creamy ingredients, the butter and the yogurt, which adds like a wonderful body to it. And then you get a little surprise from the jam on the bottom. And I even love the texture of the little bits of zest and the seeds from the raspberry jam. And then you have this wonderful, like sandy textured, still crisp crust on the bottom. It is just so refreshing and just kind of like brings a smile to my face. I also just think that something with citrus like this is a natural remedy for seasonal affective disorder, because you don't think that you would eat something so bright and fresh tasting in the dead of winter, but you can if you make this tart. Meyer lemon helps lift your mood. Thank you for watching. I hope you try this recipe, like and subscribe, and stay tuned. We'll have more dessert person content for you soon. He's our little mouth breather kitty because he has an upper respiratory problem and he's blind. But it's okay, we love him. Hear him purring?